Hello, and a very warm welcome to the Property Investor Podcast. I am your host, Paul Lanfear. Before we begin, nothing in the podcast is health, legal, or financial advice. You'll always do your own due diligence. Stephen, a very warm welcome to the podcast. How are you, my friend?
Good morning. First of all, thank you for having me on. I know people typically say that, but honestly, it is a huge honor to come on, and I'm certainly looking to do more of this, so it's much appreciated. In
Oh,
terms of how we're doing this end, I cannot complain, or what I would say is I will not complain, because in life we've always got something to complain about, but I try and do my best to always find the lesson or the learning within it. So we're not complaining this morning.
I love it. I So for those that are listening to it on Spotify, Apple, and all the other audio channels, if you did manage to find your way across to the YouTube version, what you'll see is Stephen is in just the most amazing setup. So Stephen, tell us a little bit for those that can't see it. Like what is this setup you've got? Like where are you? What's this all about?
Well, first off, we're in actually a barber shop that I own. My background is not in property, it's not in business, it's in barbering. So I've rented a space for many, many years. I've been trying to buy my own space, and obviously getting into property, that's one of the things that it's afforded us to do, not only buy our own space, but actually kit it out exactly as we want it. So it's a dark, okay, it's dark in terms of it's black throughout, but honestly, it is an absolutely amazing space. I call it a calm, safe space. So
Mm.
not only does it serve the purpose in terms of creating an environment that is great for cutting hair and communicating with people, it's also a dual purpose for me. So it's allowing me to create more content like this and share some of the things that we've learned along the way in business, in life, and all that other good stuff.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it looks absolutely amazing. And obviously I want to get into the property thing, but I kind of if you wouldn't mind, I wouldn't mind starting with the barbering thing. So obviously you and I we met, I can't remember like maybe a decade ago or something ridiculous. Um and at that stage, I think like barbering was the main focus of yours. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about um like your back well, actually no, let's do this properly. Start from the beginning, like where you from, what's that all about, and talk us through like early life and then bring us into the barbering because I do want to hover because I've got some questions on barbering for you. So let's do that early bit first of all. So like over to you, like where's the beginning?
Absolutely. Do you know what? It's one of those things where often people start podcasts and presentations and things with people's background. And I never used to understand why
Mhm.
until I was sat in the audience and I realized I resonated with somebody as a result of their story. So now I've kind of flipped that and I'm more than happy to share. And hopefully, as a result of that, somebody resonates with this because it's a huge passion and purpose of mine and ours. And it's something that we're looking to do more of because the reality is for us, I know people talk often about humble beginnings, but we really, really, really did have humble beginnings. I was born in America. Mum and dad split up around 3 years old, came over to the UK, ended up on a council estate. My partner, my wife, my now wife, earlier this year, she again
Congratulations.
is from very, thank you very much. She again is from very humble beginnings. She's from a council estate, probably a little bit worse than mine. But the point that I want to make with that and the reason why I share it is because although to some we may have not done anything that's major impressive, and we'll get on to talking about a few of the bits and pieces that we've done, but I really do want people to understand that it doesn't matter where you start in life, you can always get up, you can always look up, you can always change your circumstances. So for us, it's very humble beginnings in Bolton, which is Greater Manchester for those that don't know it, on a council estate. And we grew up on the sorts of estates where you borrowed the TV mag as well as a pot of sugar, as well as tea bags. You would knock on the neighbours' doors and you would borrow different bits and pieces like that. When you went shopping, you'd then pay them back. That's the kind of background that we had. The kind of background where you went to your mum and said, "Look, mum, can I get some sweets?" And she would open her purse and she would roll out a button, a pound coin, and maybe two or three pence on top of that. And she'd say,
Mhm.
"Look, if you want sweets, that means we're going without bread and milk." Now, maybe that gives people an indication as to how old I am, but back then you could buy bread and milk comfortably for a pound. That's
Mhm.
the sort of upbringing that we had. But in spite of that, I'm not saying get the violin out, feel sorry for us or anything like that, because it was a very, very happy time. It was just that it didn't have a lot of, well, there really wasn't a lot of ambition outside of the council estate. You
Mhm.
know, we knew when we went down to my nan's house, for example, that people did own houses, did own homes. So that was very much in the background. It was kind of on our radar, but the
Mhm.
reality is people weren't expected to do much of anything, let alone own your own home and multiple properties. Like I said, I don't say that to labour the point. It's more
Mhm.
just to show that with a vision, and this is one of the things that we're huge on,
Mhm.
empowerment, but with a vision, if you have a lack of empowerment and a lack of, examples around you, it doesn't matter. You can find a way to sort of overcome that and just find a way to press on, move forward, and ultimately become, at the risk of sounding cliche, but becoming the best possible version of yourself. Like the upper bounds of human limitation are endless. They are unknown. So we must do whatever we can to explore that. And again, we'll go more into that. I know I've gone way off on tangent, but it's just something that we're hugely passionate about. So I just want to get that in there early. But very
Yeah.
humble beginnings, Greater Manchester, in Bolton in particular.
So you've mentioned her early doors, so I think we should acknowledge this really important relationship. So do you want to say a little bit about your life and business partner, how you met, and what that's all around?
Yeah, my now wife and business partner, we actually met again. Do you know what? A lot of what I aim to share today is from an authentic place and it is real. So many people come on to different podcasts and do different interviews and things like that, and they've got amazing stories. But I think what's in particular amazing about ours is it's quite boring. A bit like our investment strategy. It is quite simple. It is quite basic, but we're consistent and we show up. So with that said, me and Natalie, or Natty as she's more commonly known, we met
Mhm.
in Bolton on a night out. There's nothing, no major sliding doors moment or anything fancy like that. But
Yeah.
one of the things that we did was we hit it off real early. And it's again something that people talk about in business. When you're finding business partners, it just so happens that my business partner is also my life partner, is just
Mhm.
make sure that you have that synergy in terms of your values. And that's one thing that we've massively got an overlap in just our values. Again, we share our backgrounds and humble beginnings, but we share our values very much so in terms of not only wanting to improve the quality of our lives and be the best that we can be, but also in terms of giving back to our local communities and also animals, which is a massive push. That's something that she actually wants to get her own animal sanctuary one day. So yeah, that's
Oh,
that's the sort of stuff we're working towards.
I love that. Um, it's funny that you like mention uh like meeting out on a night out. I don't know if you know this, but Liz and I, my wife and the mother of my child and business partner, we met in the queue of a nightclub. So my brother was moving to a different country and he had about six different leaving dues. Um, and we rocked up to this place in Leeds, very famous place in Leeds. And she was at the back of the queue, and I was at the front of the group that I was in, like a group of guys. And I remember tapping her on the shoulder and saying, is it worth us coming in?" And she kind of looked at me and she looked me up and down and she said, "No." But honestly, the rest is history. Like, and a year later we're married, and we're interestingly in a few weeks' time we're going back to recreate our first date, because it's our wedding anniversary. So I don't think there's definitely no harm meeting your life partner in the real world. I tell you that. And I feel like I'm getting ahead of myself here, but I feel like it's an important question. Like when people ask me about working with your life partner, my immediate response is don't. And part of it is a joke, and people normally laugh, but part of it is also, entrepreneurship, life, parenting, it's all really hard. And one of the blessings of not working, maybe this is a male perspective, I don't know. I hope, but let's assume it's not. One of the blessings of not working with your life partner is you have a horrendous day, and you've just been like constantly beaten up, and you can walk in the door and you can lie, and you can say, "How was your day?" "Oh, it was great." And you can kind of draw a line of the day, and you don't have to recycle it, and you don't have to explain it. And sometimes it is useful to talk to things, but sometimes you also need a bit of processing time just to get your head around what's just happened and be able to articulate it in a way which other people could digest. So I joke by saying like don't do it, but I also part of me thinks there isn't like it is a slightly crazy thing to do, isn't it? Because you're kind of bringing a lot of the outside world into your most personal and intimate place. So, you know. people are going to do it anyway, so let's not try and talk people out of it. How have you guys found a model that means you can protect the most important asset, which is you guys? Like, how have you managed that?
Well, what I would say is that actually comes back to a statement or conversation we had early doors, and that was that we would always question every sort of step forward we took. We would question whether it came with a net negative, a detriment, because
Hmm.
often people take a forward step in life or business because equally it's applicable, and they
Hmm.
don't realize what the detraction is. So therefore, one of the things, let's go back to early business when we set up the property business together. We actually had, in essence, we were duplicating roles, and that wasn't working. So we quite quickly identified that this wasn't working. It was creating points of friction, and it didn't make sense to move forward with that. And that's what I mean in terms of identifying where the detraction is, the net negative. So we actually then scrapped things, went back to basics, said, look, what are we trying to achieve here? Which again, is somewhat cliche, but start with the end in mind, work backwards. And we realized that what we wanted to achieve actually required one of us to take the lead on it, and therefore
Hmm.
that was decided that that would be me, and that we needed the other one in more of a supporting role. So we were quick to identify where our roles needed to be, where the points were overlap, where the points, sorry, of overlap were, so that we could remove those, so that we could then move forward. And then that actually takes us back to the barbering. We'll actually get into why we started in property in a minute, because hopefully there's some lessons in that. But
Hmm.
that meant me on the front end, Natty on the back end, and we actually looked at our financial landscape, and it was a case of we work. Like I said, we're ordinary people, and that's one of the things I really want to get across with this. We are average people, ordinary people that are just consistent and keep showing up. And in that, we didn't have an abundance of finance. So in actual fact, for us to start our property business, we needed the time to apply to it. But at the same time, we couldn't actually really afford to lose the income from the day jobs, because we both work in day jobs. So it was actually deciding, it was extremely difficult at the time, extremely difficult conversation. It was, bruising of the ego, I guess, being a man. It was a case of, look, if I'm going to be on the front end, Natty, you're going to be on the back end. But what that needs is for me to reduce my hours, and you ultimately to pick up those hours, financially. So essentially, we have a conversation where I'm almost in tears, because I'm thinking, this is not my model of the world. Like I said, even though we came from humble beginnings, we're influenced by, an ordinary family structure, even though that wasn't necessarily our family structure. You have visions of life, and, 2.4 kids and whatever else it is. And it was that the man goes out to work and provides, and the female is perhaps a little bit more of a homemaker. We're slightly more traditional in that sense. We call it blue rolls and pink rolls. So
Hmm.
we've got that sort of view of the world. So then for me to actually go to Natty and ask her, in order for us to move forward with this, in order for us to look to change our lives, I actually need you to get a second job.
Hmm.
So extremely difficult, because that is, and I know the world is moving on from this, but I can only be honest in sharing this. That was challenging for me at the time, because I'm supposed to be the man. If anything, I'm supposed to be the provider and the breadwinner. And I'm
Hmm.
actually asking you to get a second job on the hope that one day this business venture, this business idea will pay off.
Hmm.
So that's what we did there early doors. Like I said, we identified clear roles and responsibilities. We
Hmm.
had to park the ego. I know it's one of the things that you say down at your breakfast meeting. Quick
Hmm.
plug, if anybody has not been, absolutely a must place to be. And you always say leave your egos at the door. And again, that applies, like we said, it's all universal, life and business. We had to park our egos at the door, me on this occasion, and say, look, you will be working more hours and bringing more money into the household. But ultimately, that allows us a foundation, a financial foundation through which we can then go forward and build the business. So when
Hmm.
we've got those roles and we've got clear about those roles, that's allowed us to work together. And again, that model of asking ourselves and checking in and saying, look, is this coming at a net negative? Is this going to be a detriment, this next forward step that we take? And constantly just checking in with ourselves and reassuring, that's allowed us to successfully work alongside each other. So as much as I'm more on the front end of the business, and that is in more of a supporting role,
Hmm.
that works well for us.
That's awesome. I mean, I can say that we had exactly the same style of conversations, and you say it's a cliche, but there are some universal truths in life. Starting with the end in mind is like one of the most important things. I think that's a question that I revisit every January. Like, where are we going? What is the point? Um, and we certainly had the same conversation. I know other people have had, and I think it's about distilling down like what is this most important thing. So for Liz and I, it's to be free human beings, to have different choices. And, you know, that doesn't interestingly, that doesn't come for free. Like difficult choices have to be made and difficult conversations have to be had. Um, and I think it's a very wise conversation as well. It's once people are clear on what they want, it's then, well, what are we willing to do to get there? And it does require risk and people to make difficult choices. I think you probably do similar things as well, but I'll share a couple of things that have really worked for Liz and I, in addition to what you've described, which is very clear roles. We have this rule of no ambush. So an ambush is when somebody is getting on with the rest of their life. They're cooking their dinner, they're putting on their walking boots, they're watching their favorite TV program, and the other person walks in and just downloads a problem, a business problem. And we used to do that a lot to each other, 24 hours a day. Um, and then we realized what we were doing, and we came up with the no ambush rule. And it took us a little bit of time to find the groove of it because it's really easy. A message pings up on your phone, somebody really pisses you off, and the first thing you say is, "Can you believe?" And then enter rant. So the no ambush rule works for us really well. And the other rule that works for us is that we have formal directors meetings. They have a formal start time, they have a formal end time, they're in a nice location, and everything is brought with and dealt with at the meeting. And that's it. And then at the end of the meeting, the business is done. We have a little hug, and then we get on with the rest of our lives. But everything is so they're pretty intense. They're pretty stressful. They're pretty difficult because we deal with a lot of difficult things. But we definitely schedule that time. So you're in the barber shop. And we are going to get into the property stuff, but this is all really relevant stuff. Barbering, I think, is a really interesting occupation to have. So I don't want to delve too much into my relationship with my barber, but it is a kind of therapy in a way. It's really interesting because it's somebody you see consistently. In my case, for years on end, I have a really profound and deep relationship with him. I consider him a really close friend. I've helped him out. I've helped his family out. I would do a lot for this guy. Do you want to just unpack that relationship? Because I think it's a very unique relationship. So do you want to just talk a little bit about the role of barbering?
Yeah, without question, I'd absolutely have to agree with you. And what I would do is highlight that that is a two-way relationship because without getting sort of too deep into it, I remember 15 years ago, I wasn't in a great place.
Hmm.
And it's interesting that people used to come into the barber shop. And as you said, it's almost like there is somewhat of an expectation. I think for the right people, it's a great fit when you've got that abundance and you're in that authentic space and you are genuinely able to break down barriers in communication, connect, share, and serve. And I think if you think about it practically, like I'm quite visual, so I will picture a cutthroat razor up against somebody's jawline or somebody's jugular. If you can get that close in somebody's personal space,
Hmm.
there's no room for hairs and graces. There's no room for hiding anything. You're completely vulnerable, and you find that with that vulnerability in terms of physicality and proximity comes everything else. So many times over the years, people have come to me with their, don't get me wrong, they come to me with their most amazing moments. They're pregnant, they're having baby, they're proposing, all this kind of stuff. But equally, and what I feel is one of the greatest gifts and the greatest honors, and it's actually one of the reasons why still to this day, irrespective of what we do in property, I actually still do a few hours in the barber shop. And it's because you get to share space with somebody and be there as a genuine sort of cornerstone for them. Like you said, people look to their barbers in a certain way. But then, like I said, there's a duality that exists within that because you are able to connect and serve with people, but equally they're able to serve you. And we'll go on to that in a second. But first of all, to close off in terms of the way in which you can serve the community, there have been times where people have walked into my shop, they've been walking past and they've noticed that I'm sat for a moment, I'm not doing anything, I'm not occupied.
Hmm.
One gentleman in particular who shall remain nameless, he walked straight into the shop. Bear in mind, I'd only cut his hair a couple of times at this point. This is maybe 8 years ago, something like that. He walks straight into the shop, sits on the sofa, And I just knew the way he came in, you start to get a feel for where somebody's at. And he just looked me square in the eye and he said, I believe you're somebody I can talk to. And I nodded. I said, you can. And he said, I'm literally on my way to take my own life. And I thought I would come in here. I saw you weren't doing anything. And I don't know what happened that day, but nobody, and this is a busy shop, bear in mind, nobody came in that shop for approximately an hour. I got to sit with that person and just listen and allow him to be heard and to just share a few experiences of my own as to where I'd been in a similar space in the past and that I understood him so that he knew he wasn't alone. And fortunately, he's gone out, and it's not as a result of anything I did on that day, but he's gone out, he's turned his life around, he's got himself a partner, he's settled down. As far as I'm aware, last time I spoke to him a couple of years back, he was doing great. But that in itself, like I said, is a huge privilege and a huge honour. But the bit that people don't realise, and this is not always the case, but with me, myself, and maybe this is one of the reasons why I've really got an affinity with the barbershop and with the opportunity to connect and serve with people in that environment, is because 15 years ago, I was not in the greatest of places. And I could very much relate to this person. That's where I was at. And I'd come into work every day and it was difficult because you sort of had to put your best foot forward, because one of the things that I was huge on is customer service. Somebody's paying for your time, you bring the best of yourself. And it's like I was bringing it, unfortunately, from a hollow space. Again, I'm quite a visual person, so as cliche as it might sound, the bucket with the holes in it, I wasn't taking the time to fill the holes in my bucket, but I would still dust myself off and come to that place and bring my best. And there was something about that energy exchange where other people would bring their, like I said, because it's not all negative, it's not all challenge at all, as you'll know. People would bring the best of themselves. And it's quite an environment where people are encouraged to be free thinking and free in their actions as long as they're respectful. And I remember one day in particular when, just to sort of set the scene, like I said, I wasn't in a great space. I'm driving to the barber shop. It's about 15 minutes drive at the time to that shop. And I'm in tears the whole way to the shop. And this wasn't uncommon for me at the time. I didn't know what was going on in my life. I didn't know what was going on with my emotions, things like that, to the point where I'd regularly hold tears on the way to the shop. And I got to the shop, I dried my eyes, I say, okay, best foot forward, shoulders back, chest out, best foot forward. And I go into the shop, and it was a Saturday morning, and one of the lads just walks in, and he just had Motown on his mind that morning. He walked straight over to the stereo. Again, we're encouraging people to just, this is your space as well as ours. This is a safe space, and it's a community almost. So he walked straight over. He says, I'm deciding the music today. And he puts these Motown jams on, just really great vibes, great energy. And again, nothing in that instance was actually said, because at that time I wasn't really sharing with people where I was at, but we were able to share a space, share an energy, and we connected. It may sound a little bit whimsical to some, but we were able to connect on a deeper level. And it just bolstered my spirit at the time. So in times where I'm in a really, really dangerous space, people shared good energy and good vibes. And this is what I mean about a space like that. And again, I know they exist beyond the barbershop. There's more than just the barbershop, the whole space, but it's one of the places that I'm aware of that has this unique quality of where there can be that energy exchange, and people can go away with a sincere sort of erectness to the carriage and a genuine, uplifting spirit. So barbering for me will always hold a soft space in my heart, no matter what we go on to do in life. And I don't know whether I'll ever come away from doing it. I'll probably always do a couple of hours a week.
And I think it is amazing what you did for that other human being. I think that, and I think it's probably worth saying as well on the podcast, if anybody listening to the podcast is finding themselves in a difficult and dark place, the answer is always to talk. And if you don't feel like a previous podcast suggested this, this if you don't feel like there's someone in your life you can talk to, there are services like the Samaritans who are trained in this. And the most important thing is to say words. Like that is the modality, that is the healing process. And like kudos for you for being there. And it's interesting, you mentioned the word community, and you'll see a lot of the stuff I do around the breakfast is like community is key. I mean, that is one of the purposes of the breakfast as well, is it isn't all sunshine and roses. And the purpose of the breakfast is people can come together in a genuinely supportive and nurturing environment, and for 2 hours connect with some other human beings. And yeah, You've said some very kind things about it. People have sent me some very kind messages. I know it works. It will continue in the same way that your barbering will continue. There's always going to be a space for as long as I can envisage. There's always going to be a space for the breakfast. So there's one more question I want to get onto. Then I want to turn to the property, which is when we were preparing for the podcast, you lifted up a stack of books. Do you want to just mention what that book is?
It is the Daily Stoic. For those that have not read it or not come across it, I do not recommend anything in life. People say to me, "Oh, can I get a recommendation for this, that, or the other?" And I say, "I'm sorry, I don't make recommendations. I share experience. And if you take anything from the experience, then so be it."
Mhm.
But this book is the closest I will come to making a recommendation, sorry. So much so that we've already given about a dozen books away, and I've got another 10 books sat around me at all times because again you get into those conversations where you just think, do you know what, this could be helpful for somebody. Because do you know what, I don't want to tell too much on it and reveal too much, but it's one passage a day, one
Mhm.
page a day, which is really simple and easy to do. A lot of people in life, they're looking for transformation in a very short space of time, and one of the things that I think we've realized in life and business is that it's consistency of effort over time that yields the result. And this is a great book for that because it's literally one page a day, one passage a day. You can't race ahead. You can't get behind. If you missed a couple of days, you just pick it up and revisit. And it's got, well, Stoic philosophy, but philosophy is the point that I take from it. Just, it really helps. It helps you put on your coat of armor, you know, for the day and just frame you in the right way for the
Mhm.
challenges ahead because, you know, we all know life is challenges. But yeah, absolutely a must grab for anyone.
I absolutely love that. And I have that by my bed, and it's the first thing I read every single day. And I've been reading it for a couple of years, and I've gone through various copies. I destroyed a copy this summer where it was left out in and it got rained on or something like that. So I've been through a few copies. I if you don't make recommendations, I definitely do. It's like the book to read, and you can start anytime in the year. You just start on the page and then just work your way through it. It's definitely up there in my top three most gifted books. It's probably the most gifted book to family members. Um, yeah, I love it. So, um, tell us about property then. So, obviously, humble beginnings, and in a environment which isn't necessarily the most abundant. And I think you used, and don't allow me to misquote you, but it's something like an area where there wasn't huge ambition. I think that was the sentence that I heard. So how did you, what was the catalyst for your growth to progress from of an environment that was like that? And how did you discover property?
Yeah, for sure. Well, twofold really. The first part being sort of the personal journey. Like I said, I was in a dark place, as I'm sure many people have been. Everybody will, you know, approach their own darkest moment. Ultimately, we don't compare. But my darkest moment, I was faced with a choice, and one of the choices I wasn't willing to make as much as I contemplated. So it was a case of with the realization that this is not something I'm willing to do in terms of, you know, check out on myself and not back myself. I said from this point forward, I commit to me, myself, and I growth for the better. Caveat, as long as I hurt nobody in the process, as long as I hurt nobody else in the process, I have to focus on me. And what I mean by that in terms of a visual was that bucket that had the holes in it. I needed to find a way to plug those gaps and allow my bucket to fill so that I could give from a place of abundance instead of giving from a place of lack, really. So that's where naturally, you know, the Daily Stoic and things like that come in. You know, we're looking towards books, we're looking towards podcasts and things like that. I guess less podcasts at the time, but more books, YouTube videos, things like that. And just doing what I can to heal personally, you know, exercise, you know, hydration, all that sort of stuff that again, you know, the theme is there. It's not major exciting. It's not hugely transformational in isolation, but consistently and collectively over time, it can yield a result. So fast forward, you know, I am improving both mentally, obviously with the help of a bit of therapy and counseling and things like that, but I am personally healing. But one of the things that wasn't healing was the financial side of things. It was one of the things that we'd not got around to yet. There's so much focus on, I guess, me focusing on myself that we'd not got around to the financial healing. And this is when I can't think of the book. It pains me actually because I can never think of the book when I'm telling people this, that there was a book that actually had us do a financial sort of analysis of your current situation. And the output would be that it would highlight to you how many days, or I think the theory was how many months, but in our case, it was days, how many days away from being in a financially compromising situation you were.
Mhm.
And I remember Natalie, she was at work one day, she was out doing her thing, and I just happened to be at home. So I'm going through this book and I'm quantifying all different bits and pieces of, how much we've got in savings, this, that, and the other, when's our next paycheck, all this. And the revelation was that we were 17.5 days away from being in a financially compromising situation. And by that, what I mean is that without our paycheck, if that paycheck didn't come in, we had 17.5 days of runway. Now, I'm sure there's people that have got a lot less than that, and there's people that have got a lot more. But that to me at the time really shook me up, because one of the things that we were doing again when we were living, we got to a point where we both got a job, we're living standard lives, a couple of holidays a year, that sort of stuff. And my dad's still in America. We go out to America and we spend 15 days every single year. At the time, we spent 15 days every single year out there in America. And all of a sudden, this is when it hit me. So 17.5 days away from being financially compromised. I know we go away every single year. And that means, for those of you that have done the maths, 2.5 days away from, like, we needed that paycheck to come in 2.5 days. But because we'd always lived this way, we did not realize how we were almost like, and it's probably not the best political term, but, we were like a junkie. We needed that paycheck. And I know people need that paycheck to survive. There's nothing wrong with that. But the point is that there is other opportunities out there. There is other things such as, passive and recurring income, which we'll come on to. But I didn't realize that every single year when we're going away enjoying ourselves in the States, we're actually so close to being at the brink. So long story short, Natalie comes home. And I don't know why, but I said, Natty, I've got something to talk to you about, something that I've realized today. She, for whatever reason, comes in and sits bang smack in the middle of the kitchen table, not round the table, on the table. So she sits almost like a Buddha, arms and legs crossed. She knows I've got something to speak about. So maybe she's like, okay, I'm going to lock in, because this guy likes to talk. If you've not already noticed already, he likes the sound of his own voice. But I then say to her, look, essentially every year we're 2.5 days away. And that's just when, in that conversation, it was revealing that although we were living we're living an okay life, couple of cars on the driveway, a couple of holidays a year, we are doing nothing for our life to improve. In actual fact, we could see that it was slowly in decline, where, imagine sort of loosely having your own hands around your neck, slowly that grip would be tightening. Because if we extrapolated out our financials based on looking at the past, we could see that we had more disposable income a few years prior to that date than we did on that date. So therefore, continue to extrapolate it out, continue to live the way we've been living, we could actually end up in a genuinely challenging situation, and that's without the paychecks not coming in. So then, one thing, as there's this strange thing that seems to happen in the universe. One thing leads to another, and we find ourselves taking I think it was a couple of hour, 2 hour workshop or something, property education seminar. Now, I know there's a lot of charlatans out there. So again, like you said, no financial advice comes with a warning, all that sort of stuff. But this is where we found ourselves. We found ourselves looking for something that could do something for us. And the reason why it was property is because we'd actually bought a rental property a couple of years prior. Now, we'd bought it to rent to my mother at the time to improve her circumstances. She needed a bungalow to live in. Her health was in decline. So we got that bungalow. But there's one thing that we realized when we were looking at our financial trajectory, is that all the time we continue to essentially get worse off financially, there was one thing that had been doing okay in the background, and that was this one property. So this one property, yes, it didn't really cash flow, but that was by choice, because it was purely as a help and assistance for my mother. But had that have been a bona fide rental property, we could see what the cash flow would have been each month with, relatively minimal maintenance costs. But the most transformational thing, the most sort of insightful part about it, was the capital appreciation, which meant, in actual fact, we could recycle the money that we'd originally put in there as a deposit to then go and do more stuff in property. And then it was a case of, it was just that light bulb moment where, hold on a minute, we can have and own an asset that can establish and create generational wealth, something that we never thought of as children, but also we can provide passive income for ourselves to therefore take away that real sort of needing for that paycheck to come in, in 17.5 days. And I'll finish with this.
Mhm.
It's all well and good having this realization, but then off the back of that, like I said, we come from humble beginnings.
Mhm.
There was no finances to do this, because even that first property that we bought for my mother, we'd actually
Mhm.
put that on a credit card. So we'd actually taken deposit funds from a credit card in order to buy that property. So creative investment. I know, probably not, again, not financial advice, but that's what we'd done at the time in order to help my mother out. So we realized that we were onto something, especially coupled that with a bit of networking and insight as to property investment in itself. So then that gave us another challenge, which we are resourceful people. It was a case of how can we find the money to then scale this, to then rinse and repeat this as a business model. And that's what took us on to working with private investors to fund our projects.
So if you had to like try and distill down what makes you different. So lots of people do property education, and there's no hint of criticism in this, and they're not able to get it to work. They're not able to make it progress. And again, no hint of criticism. It's a really hard thing to do. It's much harder than people think it is. You obviously, so what was how did you get momentum? How did you break through? How did you kind of force yourself to get unstuck? Because we all get stuck at some points. Like, how did you galvanize yourselves?
Yeah, great question. Do you know what? There's probably a few things in there, but some of the key things. The first one is, again, it's probably a little bit cliche, but when you've been poor, you know what it's like to have nothing. And
Mhm.
to a certain extent, although we had managed to, get a mortgage on our own home, we managed to service that each month. And, like I said, we managed to get this property on the side, albeit that balance floating on a credit card. We had nothing to lose. When you've
Mhm.
got nothing to lose,
Mhm.
you are in a dangerous place in terms of, good. You've got a fire under your backside. So there's that. And then, like I said, in terms of having certain challenges earlier on in life,
Mhm.
and you've overcome that, because I think the greatest challenge any of us will ever have, and bear in mind this comes from somebody that doesn't have children yet, the greatest challenge we'll ever have, I believe, is that space between your ears in
Mhm.
managing to master and conquer the mind and the emotions and everything else that comes with it. And when you've been in a place where you've been completely powerless, but
Mhm.
you've started to rebuild, you start to frame things in an abundant way, and in a way where you're thinking hope and possibility. So you almost have, dare I say it, a bit of a naivety, because when I actually look back now, Natty and I, we often speak about this. We look back at what we've actually done over the past few years, which is have zero in the bank account, being 17.5 or 2.5 days away from being in a real jammy financial situation, to scaling a portfolio of almost 50 tenants now, and doing that with zero, none, nada, none of our own money. We had
Mhm.
to find a way to bring value to the people to do it. Like, we were really naive in thinking that that could work, but
Mhm.
we managed for it to work. And again, the reason why I say it is because we felt we had nothing to lose, and we were in a space of abundance and possibility. And what I would say is that, coupled with that, I think that what I believe now is authenticity, and just being really open and transparent about what it is that you want to achieve, and more importantly, why you want to achieve it. Because this is not just for quote unquote financial freedom for us. This is
Mhm.
genuinely from a place of service, that I want to continue to do what I do in the
Mhm.
barbershop. I want to, on my side, actually look at, can I go into schools and share with people from underprivileged backgrounds like myself some of the things that I now know that I didn't know because they weren't in my community. Coupled with
Mhm.
that, Natalie, she
Okay.
wants to do stuff with animals. She wants her own animal rescue shelter. So all of the money, all
Mhm.
of the resource that we aim to acquire, there's only a small part of that that's actually for us. It's actually just a tool and a gateway for us to do and give more. So I think, again, those things all coupled together are a recipe for succeeding. So what I would say to anybody is that, if you're looking to do something, whether it is in property or whether it is in another line of business or whatever it may be, just get clear about why it is that you want to do what it is that you want to do. Because I guarantee when you ask yourself the question, you're really honest with yourself, you
Mhm.
answer the question as though nobody's listening. it's not about the money. You might think it's about getting, X amount of holidays a year and driving a flash car. But once you've had the holidays, once you've got the car, then what is it really about? And I defy anybody to tell me that it's not in some way related to service.
100%. And that speaks to values as well. And I think that's a more powerful tool than people realize is if they can really do a bit of work around the values and connect with their values. That in itself is kind of rocket fuel. And I think it's pretty well established, isn't it, that most people will do more for others than they'll do for themselves. And it's about having that connection to that higher purpose. I want to get into like a life lesson with you, because it's a question we ask all the podcast guests. But before we get there, just give us like the snapshot of, well, firstly, I've always wanted to ask you this, and I don't know why I haven't asked you this in the time we've known each other. Like, where does the name Grey Fern come from? And give us like an overview snapshot of the ecosystem that's the property business, because it's a bit different to a lot of the stuff that is you see a lot pumped out. You've got quite an interesting, I would say, almost novel approach to it. So Grey Fern and then the ecosystem.
Okay, so Grey Fern, first and foremost, again, like I said, we put our values into everything. We believe in transparency. Grey Fern Properties, to people may just be, oh, Grey Fern Properties, nice name for a company, but to us, my stepdad, and one of the reasons why I was so low at the time that I was, unfortunately, he passed away at quite a young age, and I wanted to do something in his honor that meant that the values that he instilled in me we could take forward, in a way of service. Because the thing is, a lot of time in life, we're human. One of the things that is given to all of us is a sentence upon birth. And unfortunately, some people are taken what feels too soon. It's taken earlier than others. And I try wherever possible, and maybe this is from the Daily Stoic, but I try wherever possible to take the lesson. So yes, I didn't manage to process in the way that I would have ideally liked to process, and I went through a lot of turbulence in finding my healing. But once I got clear, it was a case of how can we take these lessons and learnings forward in terms of, I guess it was more philosophical, some of the teachings that I had from my stepdad. How can we take that forward as fuel? And this is what I mean about why you do what it is that you do. Even when it comes to naming your company, you can actually have that constant reminder of why it is that you do what it is that you do, and you can benefit from that free fuel. So Grey Fern stands for Graham Fern. His name was Graham Fern, but nobody ever called him Graham. Everybody always called him Grey. So Grey Fern Properties, that's the reason for the naming behind the company. But then moving on to the ecosystem, I'm not even sure I understood the question. You hit me with a few
Well,
big
like
words there. You
this,
said a novel approach.
well, you've got so just tell us about the business. Like, tell us about the property business. Like, what's the end product? Who do you serve?
Plain and simply, do you know what? It's crazy because when you actually look at it and you break it down, everybody is served through our business. Whether it's us improving the quality of our lives,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's the learnings and the teachings that we share with other people. We buy board games and financial education games, and we share that with the nieces and nephews, as well as actually just be completely transparent about what it is that we do and how we do it. Again, we didn't have any money starting off in property. So that's one of the things that we had to find a way to add value to other people so that
Mm-hmm.
they would then back us financially with our projects. So our private investors, which I know a lot of people go, oh, private investors, that sounds very fancy, but they're average people. Again, they're people like you or I that have managed to save a little bit of money and they know it's doing nothing for them in the bank. So they're served through our projects.
Mm-hmm.
They are supporting our mission for service. So again, not only are they finding that they're getting financial remuneration, they can actually take, a small piece of joy, hopefully, from the success we have and the other goodwill that we put out into the world.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, the people that come into the barbershop over the years, the contractors, they're the same people that we employ to work on our projects, as well as the tenants that actually occupy our projects. We're huge about Bolton. People speak about acres of diamonds. There's diamonds everywhere. And a lot of people, when they do look to do a business venture, they're moving up and down the country and all over the place. Bolton, there are better towns, there are worse towns, but there's one thing that it's our hometown. So if we can do something to improve our hometown, because it's been in massive decline, there's no bones about it. It's been in massive decline over the years. And if we can do something small by way of putting back into our hometown, again, just putting out that good energy there, then
Hmm.
we absolutely will and will continue to do that.
Hmm. I love it. I was speaking at an event last week, and I was I hadn't really thought of it too much, but I was just making the comment like we're making great places for people to live, and people fundamentally need nice places to live, and it was really nice to see the reaction from the audience, because I think sometimes that's lost in the property spaces. Like we're making homes for people to live in. Like no landlord. I mean, it's just like nuts that there's this perception that landlords want to hoof out all their tenants all the time. It's like just like if people were to think that through, they would realize how fundamentally flawed it is. Normally, people who own property want to recruit really great tenants. They want to be a really cooperative, collaborative relationship, ideally forever. It's like kind of the plan, isn't it? You know. Okay, so conscious of the time, and so we'll do some like we'll do this, and then we'll do some quick fire stuff, and I'm going to let you go. Give us a life lesson, Stephen.
Oh, life lesson. Maybe I should have thought about this in advance. A life lesson. A life lesson.
So let me
Great
unpack that for a
question.
second. So a way you can approach it as ever you like. A way you can approach this is you think about an event that happened in your life. It can be a good one or it can be a bad one. And you look within that lesson, not necessarily for the story, stories are important, but you look for what the listeners to the podcast could take away and apply in their own lives.
There are so many. There are so many. There really are. God, which way to go with it? Do you know, it's funny because it's one of those things that you're typically engrossed in conversation and things just naturally fall out as you go. Whereas when you actually put it on the spot, I guess it almost feels like the pressure to come up with the one thing. But maybe
Hmm.
that in itself is the lesson, that there isn't that one thing. Because so many
Hmm.
times you ask people, or sorry, people will ask,
Hmm.
what's the one thing?
Hmm.
What's the essentially what they're asking is, what's the hack or what's the shortcut, sorry, so that I can repeat that. But
Hmm.
we said it earlier, there are no shortcuts.
Hmm.
Success in whatever field comes from consistency of effort
Hmm.
over time. There is
Hmm.
nothing sexy about it. There are no shortcuts. So I think that for me would probably be one thing to consider for people, because so many people start something but
Hmm.
don't finish because they don't realize that
Hmm.
consistency of effort will yield the result. They're expecting results too soon. And again, who is it? The quote, Tony Robbins, I think it is. He
Hmm.
says people underestimate what they can achieve in a lifetime, but they overestimate what they can achieve in, a day or a week or something like that.
Hmm.
And prime example for me at the minute, I'm learning the guitar. I'm learning to play the
Oh,
guitar.
nice.
Yeah. And I saw the guitar over your shoulder. That's what drew
Yeah,
my
yeah.
attention to it. So I'm learning to play the guitar, and I picked this up 9 months ago. Now, a former version of me
Hmm.
would have definitely quit by now. Absolutely would have quit by now. But because we've had experience, both improving our minds, both financially educating ourselves and growing the business, and realizing that the results really do come if you just hang in there.
Hmm.
Put your ladder up against the right wall and
Hmm.
then do not quit.
Yeah.
Honestly, for 8 months, I have sounded horrific. And I've had two revelations just this month. My
Hmm.
niece, she just moved in with us, and I was just practicing or murdering the guitar. And she came down and she said, "Is that you?" I said, "Yeah." And then she said, "That sounds like X." She thought that what I was playing sounded like something. So that's the first one. The second
Cool.
one, my wife last night, Natty, she said to me, "Oh, wow." Because I joked and said, "Let me play you a song. I'm writing a song." I walked in, sat down with the guitar, started strumming. And she just
Hmm.
looked at me shocked and she said, "No way, you can actually play the guitar." Now, little does she know I can't play the guitar. All I had was those few chords in me. But the point is there that too many times people are not realizing what they can achieve if they are just consistent. Because there's one thing that I really do hope comes across in this, because I feel there's a gem in this for people to take away.
Yeah.
We are very, very ordinary people, but we just keep showing up. So whatever it is, whatever it is that's your vision for the future, whatever you want to achieve, just keep showing up, be consistent.
And just to, like from a factual point of view, you if you can string a few chords together, you can play the guitar. It's interesting, isn't it? There's, by the same author of the Daily Stoic, there's a book called I think it's called The Ego is the Enemy. And I really think like that's something I think about a lot of the time, is you know, I mean, even you've said it on the podcast, you said we haven't done as impressive things as other people. And I didn't want to pick you up on it, but I feel like I will pick you on it now because it's the second time you said it. But like I can't play the guitar, we haven't done the most impressive things. Like that is just bullshit because that is just the ego, and it's the ego trying to protect ourselves. And I think that's one of the things we need to do battle with. Like I fully embrace the fact that I am a terrible surfer and I am never ever going to be really good. Um, but one, I don't care because I absolutely love it and I have a connection to it, which is to a level that I don't understand and not willing to pick apart either. Um, but I am conscious that there is that battle of doing the ego, isn't it? Like we want to be good at things, and often we can compare ourselves to other. What's that lovely expression? Comparison is the thief of joy. Amen to that. We all know that. Let's talk. So I want to signpost people to your stuff. You do some really like your Instagram is just amazing. Like I mean, it's so impressive. But before we get there, give us we all know health is wealth. You've mentioned a few times on the podcast coming back from a very difficult place. So give us like two or three things, actionable things that people listening to the podcast can incorporate into their life that might improve where they're at.
Do you know what? I actually did a slight bit of preparation for these because I did write this down just to make sure we hammer that home.
Hmm.
So for me, again, just on the same vein, really, of consistency, and it's one of the things that my dad said to me a few years ago. He spoke about finding balance, and again, I believe that balance is found in the small things, doing them consistently over time. So we've got an app called Way of Life. So Way of Life, and it just simply allows you to track your habits. So we track simple things on there. What's our water intake for the day? Did we get veggies? Did we get a certain amount of sleep? And again, in isolation, none of these are going to do amazing transformational things for you. But collectively, they are
Hmm.
so powerful. And again, it goes back to that point that people ask the question, what's the one thing? And again, they're looking for that hack, they're looking for that shortcut, but there
Hmm.
really are no shortcuts. So we just
Hmm.
focus on being consistent over time. And this app is one of the things that allows us to do that. And then again, with the balance sentiment in mind that my dad expressed, it's a case of we look at these habits and say, has this got the right balance in there for us? So for us mentally and physically, on a business front, and equally on a service front. So we'll have, let's say for the business, we'll have the frogs on there. We like to eat the frogs first. If anybody's not read that book, I think it's Brian Tracy, that frog,
Yeah.
great book about finding essentially the one or two things, a few things that are really going to transform your day on a business front,
Hmm.
often is the case for us. So we get those things done nice and early because it's amazing when you get that quick win, but it's a
Hmm.
huge win early in the day, how that sets you up for the rest of the day. And that again is the same with consistency throughout the day, your water intake, your veggies, and all that other sort of stuff. I don't want to labour that point too much, but essentially, it cultivates that state of mind that we were speaking about before, that abundance. So one of the first things that I do every single morning, as
Hmm.
my feet touch the floor, thank you as my first two footsteps touch down, just to remind myself that look, this day is a gift. This day is an
Hmm.
opportunity for us. Let's see ourselves in abundance. So we
Hmm.
start the day with gratitude, and then we uphold it with consistency over time. And like I said, I throw, for example, a little habit in there being the guitar. It sounds somewhat trivial, but you found a way to do something for your business. You found a way to do something for your health and state of mind. And then if you can find something cathartic, something for you away from the business and all the rush and busyness of life, something that can just seat you in the present moment. I think all of this together, combined, again, collectively, done consistently, can have huge transformational benefits for people.
Love it. Love it. I have mentioned already your Instagram. I just one question on your Instagram before I let you go. You use this. I really like this kind of strapline you use, which is "Rise together, we rise together." Can you just speak a little bit about that? Tell me about that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you know what? I'm so glad you asked that and we didn't sign off on this. Full of cliches, but we're given two hands for a reason. We are
Hmm.
given two hands for a reason. And I just remember, even though we didn't have a lot starting out, we always wanted to help. We always wanted to give back. You know, if you learned something, you wanted to share it. If you had something, you wanted to share it, give it away, etc. And that we've realized is absolutely the recipe for moving forward in life and business, because you hear this term bandied around where people speak of, oh, I'm self-made, this person's self-made. And
Yeah.
it does make me cringe a little bit, although I think I get where they're coming from, so there isn't too much judgment. But the reality is we stand on the shoulders of giants, those that have gone before us. Even our business model, we can take no credit for our business model because somebody else established it before us. We took that and we just do it. So
Mhm.
therefore, the giants that have gone before us have paved the way. Now, okay, in this instance, you know, we may have remunerated them for that, for that insight and that acumen, in order to allow us to roll it out. But they gave it to us. So
Mhm.
therefore, no matter how far ahead you are, and again, I know it's somewhat loose in terms, but you know how far advanced you are on a certain endeavor, whether it be mental, spiritual, physical, emotional, whatever it is, business, you name it,
Mhm.
you've done more than somebody else, but equally somebody out there would have done a little bit more than you. You can continue to grow if
Mhm.
people share with you, but equally you can allow the next generation of people to come through if you share with them. So it really is just about that. You've got two hands for a reason, and make sure you use them in that proportion.
I'm not going to add a word to that. Let's leave that there. That's absolutely perfect. So I've, I've flagged up your Insta. Your Insta is really, really solid. Do you want me to put, so I'll put a link to the Insta. You clearly put a lot of work into it. Would you like me to put another link in, or do you want me just to leave it with the Insta?
Yeah, do you know what? I'm more than happy with the Instagram. What I say is, you know, we're Grey Fern Properties, Grey, grey is in the colour. We're Grey Fern Properties. We're not the sort of people to hide behind the brand. You know, we're real people. Feel free to connect with us on socials, Natty and Stephen Kempt. Feel
Mhm.
free to connect. But what I would say is the activity and the bulk of it, it's all
Mhm.
going on Grey Fern Properties. So we're not hiding behind the brand, but come and check us out. We'd really appreciate that.
I absolutely love it. Now, I don't normally do this. This is really self-indulgent for me, but you do come to the breakfast. So you do come to the physical breakfast, you come to my breakfast. And one of the things that I try and address is like those people thinking about coming to a breakfast, but they're naturally a bit nervous, because everybody's nervous, like everybody's terrified. If you could speak to somebody who is contemplating coming to the breakfast, but they had the usual level of apprehension that a normal human being would have in the circumstances, what would you say to them?
It would be an absolute just do it. You know, feel the fear. This is something my mum used to say to me, feel the fear and
Yeah.
do it anyway. I remember coming into the breakfast meeting, and at the time, we were very early on in our journey. We'd just done two deals. I say just, we'd done two deals. We were proud of them, but we'd done two deals at the time. And we came in with a full portfolio that only had 2 pages filled in. And in hindsight, now I just think how naive. We walked in there as if we were big shop developers with a portfolio with two properties in it. And we put it up there and we shared, and not one person criticized it. People were so supportive and encouraging of what it is that we'd done and the vision for the future. And so many key contacts for people can and will come out of that room. You must utilize the network. Think about what we said. You're given two hands for a reason. That's one of the things that we have seen time and time again at the breakfast. People are more than happy to share. They really are a great community of people. It sounds like I've been paid to say this, but honestly, great community of people. And that's the reason why, even though we're over in Bolton, there are a lot of meetings over in Manchester. Leeds is a lot further away from us, but we come across anyway.
I have to say, there's no paid endorsements in this podcast. Thank you very much. Stephen Kempt, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been a real pleasure. You've given so much value today, and I hope people come and, as a minimum, they've got to check out the Insta. So thank you very much, Stephen.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, Property and Investor Podcast. We're getting to this. We've only got one more podcast left of the year, and then we get together in January. Please do think about joining us in January. So every January, I host this breakfast, first breakfast of the year. It's called the Discovery Day. It's completely free. It also involves like We support a really good charity in Leeds. Come, we'll work on our goals, our vision, our plan for 2025. I'll chuck in a couple of predictions as well. It's a lot of fun. You'll get a lot out of it. Click on the link below. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Please do share it with a friend, and yeah, we'll speak very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.